Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Maria and I make personal development content. So in today's video, I really wanted to come on here and kind of talk about compassion and what compassion really means and the different ways that I feel like we kind of misconstrue what compassion actually means and what it looks like, what it does not look like. So if you haven't already been looking at my videos, I've kind of just been, again, like just posting different videos on personal development, things that I'm learning, things that I have learned, things that I continue to learn. So in this video, as I said, we're going to talk about compassion. And so honestly, compassion is just learning how to understand and give people grace. Um, I think a lot of times, especially if you're a person that's pretty hard on yourself, it's hard to learn how to have compassion for other people. And I can say for myself, like one of those biggest things that um, I have had to learn to have compassion. And honestly, mine kind of happened in the reverse. So typically, a lot of people learn or they're instructed to learn how to have compassion for themselves first, and then they'll learn how to have compassion for others. But honestly, in my opinion, it and in my experience, it has happened that I have learned how to have compassion for other people, and I've been able to see other people's struggles and things that they may be going through in a different lens, and that's allowed me to then learn how to be more kind and gentle to myself. I started learning how to have compassion for my family, for my friends, like my caregivers, the people who raised me. I'm like my parents. I'm like, okay, when I was younger, I was angry. I was upset. I couldn't understand. I always was just like, oh, like, if you really cared about me or if you really loved me, you would have gotten your life together or you would have done X, Y, and Z, and you would have made sure that you were able to show up for me the best way possible. And one thing that we have to realize, especially with our parents, is that they're humans and that they do not have a handbook to life, right? And I think that that's something that we all have to be aware of, especially those of us that do not have kids, because we can never say definitively what we would do with our kids if we were faced with the same challenges that our parents may have been faced with. And so I think the biggest thing that I have been learning through this personal development journey is understanding and being able to look at my parents and my caregivers and that light and saying, what may they have been going through for them to respond in a way that I feel like I would not have responded in. And the other thing is too, it also comes from like it helps you to get out of this like self-righteous mindset, because it's so easy to have that mindset again when you never raised kids, when you don't have kids. So it's like you don't really necessarily know how you would handle things. And it's not like, oh, one way is the right way and one way is the wrong way. Of course, there's always like better ways to do things or worse way to do things, which are completely obvious. But there's also things that like we have to understand that our parents, and this is just an example I want to give. We could say same thing for our friends, for anybody, our romantic relationships, anybody. We have to understand that they did the best thing that they knew how to do at the time with the options and the challenges that they faced and the choices that they were given to do at that time. And I think part of like releasing the lack of self compassion that we have for ourselves as well is to ask our parents or our friends or our romantic relationship partners those questions of like, what could you have been going through at that time? Like, what made you do X, Y, and Z? And you really want to just kind of come from a true curious place, not from like a accusatory place, not from like a demanding place, but like, I was wondering, what were you going through at that time that made you really decide to handle it that way? I'm just interested. And so it's like as you get more curious, you're able to really be able to see that person in a different limelight, especially if they choose to be vulnerable with you. And the way that you can kind of help them be more vulnerable with you is to truthfully allow that space for them to want to be vulnerable with you, right? And you do that by not judging them, by not like saying like, oh, well, I would have done it this way. You don't want to come across again self-righteous. You really want to be genuine and you really want to be curious about it, because that's going to also allow you to be compassionate. And then in those times where they choose not to be vulnerable with you about what could have been going on, you can kind of come up or kind of just imagine for yourself what they could have been going through in that time, and just giving them that benefit of the doubt and giving them that grace. And I found that for myself, I'm a person that's really hard on myself, and I'm always like, ah, I could be doing better, or oh, I could have done this better, or I could have done that better. But as I continue to grow and to learn things about myself, I start to look at my childhood and I start to look at me as like a little me, and like what I had to do in these times to protect myself and to keep myself safe. And I just want to be fully transparent too. It's not like I went through anything egregious, but it's just like, there may be certain character flaws about myself that I really don't care for. And I'm like, I want to work through those things. And it's like, it may be some things that may be a little bit challenging. And I'm like, ugh, why is it so hard for me to like unlearn these things and relearn the more healthier way to do things? And I sometimes I get frustrated with myself, like, oh my gosh, maybe it's just not meant for me to get. But it's like, no, it is meant for us to get. And we have to be compassionate with ourselves and give ourselves grace, even in those times where we may fail or we may take a step back from where we want it to be. But it's always just about getting back on that right track and caring and being intentional with our actions and making sure that we are trying to move towards a more healthier space. And I also wanted to kind of say too that when it comes to having compassion, especially for others, that doesn't necessarily mean that when you're having compassion for others, that means that you have to accept or be okay, I should say, with how they handled things, right? Especially if it caused you um, hurt and pain and all those things. It's not like you're like, oh, well, you know what? Like, oh, keep doing it. No. There is a time where once you grow and you learn and you realize that this is not a healthy way and that this has truly affected you, you are able to speak up for yourself. You're not that child anymore. And a lot of things come from childhood. You are not that child anymore that can't speak up for themselves and cannot say, like, I will not put up with this. You are not that child anymore where you're not allowed to put up boundaries. You are absolutely allowed to put up boundaries. And I suggest and I strongly encourage for you to do so. Um, and if the person that you are setting this boundary with is not willing to comply and they are not being respectful of your boundaries and the new way that you are choosing to grow and live, then that is when you still have that compassion for them and the things that they have experienced in life and why they are the way they are. And actually, it causes you to have even more compassion because you can say, wow, this person is truly struggling so much that they may be really having a hard time of changing. And again, sticking in that compassion mindset does not mean that you have to put up with it. And I think a lot of people really struggle, myself included, especially when it's like your loved ones or maybe like, someone you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, or maybe even like a friend that you've had friends you were friends with for years, someone you may consider like a family member at that point. All of those things are true and real, but having compassion for them simply means giving them grace and understanding that they're doing the best that they can with the options that they have. And they just may not be at that place yet where they are even able to see that they need change or that they're capable of changing. And so again, it's just about having that mindset of that compassion, because having that compassion with people in a non-judgmental way will also do you well as well, because you'll be able to look at your life and your situation and decisions that you make, and you'll be like, you know what, I want to be better. I want to live healthier. I want to make better decisions. But I can still forgive myself in that moment because, I may have been operating from uh, a different place than where I want to be right now. And so it's just about working on um, really being able to learn how to have compassion for ourselves and for others. And compassion really does go a long way because the way we judge is the same way that we will be judged. And I just really just think that it's important to learn how to have compassion for everyone. So that's really it for me. Please be sure to leave a comment down below. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about this. I will be responding in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next personal development video. Bye bye.